You are now tuned into Fans Garage Podcast with hosts Sir G20, Sir Miles High, and the First Lady Lele GT.
Hey y'all, this is Lady Lele GT. 1/3 of the family right now. I actually wanted to have a conversation about women and our association with vehicles in its totality. So basically the stigma of women and their association with being behind the wheel, on and under the hood. Always felt that socially men wouldn't strike a conversation to a female about cars. Not even off the rip, just like having a normal conversation. That wouldn't be the choice initial conversation. I always feel like for any man to, for some weird reason, having a conversation with a female about cars, its makeup, anything associated with a vehicle, it would have to be stirred up by accident. Like, I don't feel like it's a main idea that a guy would, oh, let me ask her about this. Maybe she knows about that. Like, I don't even see that as a male's initial understanding before he approaches a female about anything. Because normally what I feel and what I sense is that even as growing up, I always sensed that it wasn't something that men talk to females about. It was always have to be catered down to how we were stereotypically raised, our traditional sense of how women are being raised different way and how men are treated and raised a certain way. So, I just find it so very weird because even with that gap of just being able to have the forethought of saying, you know what, all women know about cars to some degree, and I shouldn't just assume that she just doesn't know. That's the gap that we have in our society. And I still feel it, even though we do have females in the corporate side of the automobile industry, and then we also have women in the forefront in NASCAR racing. They're even developing even now, which I still feel is sad, but is a positive movement, starting to encourage young female drivers to start racing professionally in NASCAR. So they do have a empowerment women. They have an empowerment women program that they're trying to expand, and bring in these females. But at the same time, it's so weird how our society literally separates the idea of a woman being completely competent in most areas, if not all areas, of vehicles, cars, automobiles, race cars, drift cars, different types of racing, anything. It is so weird. The reason why I find it weird is just because simply of that, what I just said about this generalized idea of separating the companionship or even association of a woman just knowing anything about a car or how to operate it, historical facts about it, like being able to look at a circuitry map on a vehicle and being able to diagnose what the issue is, and even having that conversation. Like, I feel it this way only because, one, it's true, and secondly, it's just the idea of how my thinking is. So, for instance, like, literally, I was raised all girls. I would say it was 5 of us all together. Like, I would say 2 out of the 5 have a just understanding of and an interest in cars, automobiles, and just this whole thing about even being behind the wheel. It could be things from being very creative about, oh, I like looking at different types of exterior, well, I'm sorry, the look, the makeup of the vehicles, how they're built, this the lines um of the vehicle, how it looks, different types of looks you can create with it using things that come direct from the factory or things that people take the time to do on their own. You liked you basically have an interest of just the creative mindset of how someone wants to pretty much decorate a car. Like that's pretty much what it boils down to, and that's what it really is at the end of the day. Um, I'm trying to remember when or how I come into loving cars. I feel like I always loved it since I was born. Like I never not looked at a vehicle and not like what it does. That's one. Two, that fascination of what can it do? What makes it different from another car? Like, how can I change the look of it? How can I change the inside look of it? What can I add on for luxury? What can I add on for sport? What can I add on for needs and necessity? Um, all those things. That stuff runs through my mind almost every day. There's sometimes like I look at the car that me and my husband have. We have a family van, so I look at, okay, how can I let have it look luxury and comfortable inside, but then on the outside, I want it to look very simple, clean looking, but I want a little sport look to it, a little off road look to it. Um, so yeah, like I remember when I was younger, I believe I was young. I was very young. Probably like this is before I was probably like 5 years of age. I'm going to assume that we had like a Buick, a Buick or a Lincoln Town car, and I will see my dad try to triage this issue that we had. Like, oh, the car is smoking or is leaking this type of fluid. And because I was just this inquisitive kid, my dad didn't tell me, oh, come outside, you need to learn this. It was me walking up to my father, asking him, hey, taking an interest, asking questions. Hey, what's going on with the vehicle? So pretty much he was like, oh, I was smoking because of this. Sometimes, men tend to not overly explain certain things just because the hidden understanding of like, they may not want to be bothered with it. I'm just going to tell her just that. But I kept asking different types of questions, questions that forced my father to dig deep and tell me everything. Don't just tell me, oh, the car is smoking and I just need to check on why. Okay, what causes it to smoke? Why is it smoking like that? Is it foul behind the noise? Is there a leak or not a leak that I have to look for? What's going on? How are you going to fix it? Like literally everything went through my mind. I am a person that likes to look at the logistics of a situation. So when I'm thinking about a car, I need to know the exhaust system, the you know, the fuse box. Okay, so is there one fuse box, two fuse box? All these little things like you ask all these questions because I feel like I'm a mini engineer when I was little. Even now sometimes not so much because life happened and you tend to not think of certain things. Um but this keen interest of wanting to know the specifics on what makes this car tick and what things can I do to maintain it because socially speaking, traditionally speaking, I don't feel a lot of women are even taught, as a child, okay, this is how maintain your car. I feel like there's this generalized thing you would tell to your daughters, and there's this huge uh, explanation and years of lessons that a father would teach their son versus a female. But I feel like men need to now literally explain everything to both sexes. It doesn't make sense to me, especially if you want your daughter to know how to take care of herself and not ask for help in the middle of the street, right? So why not tell your daughter how to properly change a tire? What's the PSI that has to be? What's the level for your vehicle? stuff like that. Like, I feel like there's this underwhelming generalization that we push to the females, but we don't push to the men. And when you do that, it doesn't get the lady interested, the little girl interested, because they had to do most of the work trying to figure out what's going on. And what they don't know sometimes, if I can do it anywhere else and I don't have to deal with the headache, I'm going to do it, which you push your daughters into, or wives, or whoever, to the mechanic, and then they get ripped off, and then you wonder why they get ripped off, because no one took the time in breaking it down, having them understand, teaching them the love of it, because it's the same thing as a female, quote unquote, running the household. Oh, she cleans, she knows where everything is. um I teach my son that. I teach all my sons that. I teach everything that I need to know about running a household. Why do I need to keep this clean? Why does this have to be, a certain way? I don't feel like it's a sexual thing to be biased or give more information to my sons than my daughters, because either way, if you're going to end up in a relationship, y'all need to know how to figure it out anyway. So, and it makes life easier because it's a burden that you just don't have to hold on to, because you just have education behind it. I need to know what the heck I'm doing. So for instance, like, just as I said, that I literally teach my son the same way about a car, the same way as in when he has to maintain a household. The same way. The same amount of information, the same type of formal training is the same I give my son as my daughter. Um Also, I feel that once I started to know more information about the inner workings of a car, like, I think the first thing was the exhaust system. I was just fascinated about it, and then what I did was, I remember it was a summertime. I think it was like 5, 6. I went into the encyclopedia, and I literally look at how it was put together, figure out, is it just all one piece? Is it pieces? What does this connect to? And if this happens, what happened? Like, I looked at the encyclopedia book about it. Then from the encyclopedia book, I looked at, my dad used to buy these mechanic, um, general mechanic, books, like info books, like Bob Vila and stuff like that back in the day. But to cars, to automobiles. I think it was called Home Mechanic. I don't know if that was the true name of that magazine, but my dad had bought that from an auto store, and then I saw it laying around the house, so I picked it up and I looked at it. And I was looking through the whole. I read that whole entire book, that summer, and I just had a just understanding. So, God forbid something were to happen with our car, um, I would be able to sit with my dad and help him form an reason, or triage the situation about, like, what the heck is going on with this car. And I would just put up suggestions. And because I took so much time in educating myself about cars, the mechanics of it, the engine wise, about a vehicle, whether, like, what smells come out of car. Like, if I'm leaking this, it should smell. Sometimes it gives off this scent, and um, um, just how much leakage after you turn off your car should you have. There is a limit. A lot of people think, especially when you use your coolant or whatever inside your car, but women aren't taught those tiny specifics that make so much of a difference, especially in their life. Like, you don't realize how much of an effect just teaching your daughter specifics like that can help her when she's outside in the street, especially by herself or in a situation where she's just confused. And there's a lot of people out there that like take advantage of people. This male or female. There's people out there that will take advantage of people. Period. Um, just because of how much you know of something. Um, so yeah, I really pride myself in letting my children know the specifics of house and the car, because I still consider that a piece of the house, but whatever. You know, because you could save so much money. Like I've seen my dad get ripped off, and that's not a good feeling, especially after, you try to tell your parent, hey, let's not pay $1,500 for this. Let's not do that. And then your father's like, yeah, don't worry about it. The father gives you the traditional pat on the head. Don't worry about it, honey. I got it. Then you realize that later on your daughter was right, and then you look like a fool, and you can't get that $1,500 back. So I think after that point, I think I was able to get my father's money back. I actually called the mechanic and let the mechanic know. He like, who is calling? I'm calling on behalf of such and blah 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 blah. And I was able to get my father's money back because I was able to let them know or catch them in their fraud. I'm like, well, we're going to be able to identify whether or not you did exchange this piece for another piece because there's a there's a coding on it and whatever. That it was that type of a situation. I'm like, yeah, no, like you can't just take the piece out, clean it up, and put it right back in, and then say that you got the person a new part. Yeah, so it was that type of situation. So if my dad didn't know that, but if a guy figure out, he could have just went to the auto store and pick up a bottle of special oil just to throw inside the engine versus somebody charging him an arm and leg just for them to go around the corner and pour something in your car. You know, that's the stuff that we want to try to avoid. Um, yeah. So I've been seeing lately there are a lot of commercials in the automotive industry showcasing females at the forefront from NASCAR racing, like I had mentioned earlier. You also have stunt woman driver. And I saw this with the Ford commercials. So they're doing more work in trying to uh, allow women to be seen more and to be seen as a normal commodity. This is our asset. This is what we have. This is considered normal. It shouldn't be special, but at the same time, there's still this crazy stereotype and way of life that we have that for some reason, even if most men were to see these commercials and just people in society, male, female, young, old, would see it, it's still hard to see it as your everyday and realize that this is a normal thing. Um, oh man, so like I said, I was watching the Ford commercials and I'm seeing this showcase and I'm looking online and I'm showing that NASCAR is having this phenomenal program that helps push more female NASCAR drivers into the industry. Um, but yeah, like I really wanted to have this conversation today just as just to which we will have more and more over time, but it's basically just to have an understanding as to say it's still not normal yet. Um yes, we still have the empowerment. Yes, you could still see physical showcasing of females that are out there doing these things, but you literally don't see them every day in your everyday life. Um and we still don't have these conversations with our female counterparts and male counterparts in this arena, this area, this general idea of women do share the same love. Women do uh, love talking about these things, but sometimes it's going to be a little annoying for a female to just always have to strike the conversation and on the inside feel like, okay, don't feel a certain way trying to approach me or even having the idea to think or to question, hey, do you know about this? And it's so weird because we are surrounded by it quite a lot and it just doesn't make sense. Just as in a female would not assume to ask a man, hey, what did you cook yourself for dinner? A more quote unquote feminine thing. that we associate. We associate women with cooking, um, and those things, but it's not a shared title. It's not a shared uh, association. So, I hope this was a conversation. I hope this was an enlightenment, or, just this, just to have, I don't know, just see if you guys can speak to your parents, your mom, especially the male counterparts, even either or, just have a conversation with somebody and see what they know, because you don't know if you don't ask. And so we can create this whole normalcy, because it's not normal. Like, you don't normally see a man say, "Oh, I'm rooting for such and such, a female NASCAR rider. She's new, blah blah blah." There's no uh, overwhelming support. It's like we have to pretty much prove ourselves in these things when we should be seen as equal counterparts if we're given the purpose, the education, and the support of even knowing anything about a vehicle, whether it's under the car, whether it's just the pure knowledge of these things and a keen interest. So that's my conversation. Like I said, I hope you guys feel intrigued or have the idea to just ask and start sparking more of these conversations. So once again, we could turn this into a normal thing. So we even had to say, "Hey, do you see women?" So y'all have a good one.